Hello everybody and welcome to another video. My name is Tom from 6 Foot Networks. Today we're going to do something a little different. I know in the past we've talked about virtualizing and creating a VMware server, specifically a VMware ESXi server that would run all your virtual machines. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Mac, one of our many Macs that we have laying around, and we're going to actually build a virtual server using VMware Fusion, leaving macOS as the front end, and then having all the virtual machines in their own separate players. We're going to see the performance of it. We're going to kind of test it, see how it behaves, see if it's any better than VMware, because as you know, macOS is free. You know, it doesn't cost anything to install it on a Mac. So this is right now about 22 minutes to go on the macOS Big Sur installation, and we're going to deploy it to a 2013 Apple Mac Pro. So let's see how this process goes, and we'll take it to the computer next to see how the setup's going to be once this loads. So I'm remote controlling the VMware Fusion server just in an effort to make things a little bit easier. It's probably a little bit better to see versus recording a screen. We'll just do it this way. So as you can see, I have VMware Fusion running here. We're going to do a new virtual machine. We're going to install from disk or disk image. We're just going to hit continue. We're going to drag a disk image here. So here's the disk image from the previous video that we did. We're just going to drag it and drop it right there. We're going to hit continue. It already detects that it's macOS, and this is going to be version 11. Continue. We're going to customize these settings. We're going to call this 11.5 because it will be .5. And this is going to be base image, if I can type. Okay, and the virtual machines folder is fine. That is the default location. So, okay, so now we have the settings window up for the virtual machine. And over here, I'd like to configure, while I'm at it, the processors. So we'll give it 8. And we'll keep 4096 just for this purpose. We can remove the sound card. We can make sure that isolation is not enabled. Good, so we have drag and drop capabilities. And the rest of this we're going to leave for now. So we're going to close that, bring this over here a little bit, and we're going to hit start. We're just going to go through the install process right now. So through the magic of movie making, I'm going to fast forward this for you so you don't have to watch it all again. Okay, so while this is going, since we have about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so to go before this is finished, why am I doing this? You might be asking. Well, I don't know, to be honest. This is one of those exploratory videos that I was more curious about than anything else. In fact, one of the things that kind of led me down this path was the failure of the other VMware ESXi server that we had built a few weeks ago. It literally failed with an unknown error code when I shut it down for maintenance. I wanted to give it a good cleaning, you know, inside and out, and I shut it down. Something happened, things happened, life happened, and I turned it back on just because I wasn't going to do the maintenance at that time. Lo and behold, it gave me some bogus error, and through forum searches after forum searches, I concluded that it was a hardware issue in that VMware does not play well with a lot of hardware. So, and I've heard that said before, but I figured since it installed and it ran that it would work fine. But all it took was the first shutdown, maintenance mode shutdown, that it didn't come back up. So this kind of came out of that whole process because I figured, well, I still need to build a directory services server, and I didn't really lose anything because I had that archive file and I still have that archive, so I can restore it. But as you guys know, if you've watched that video, there was nothing in that directory server. That server was brand new. It was something that I was building out, and I really needed to move it off of the server that I put it on because of the fact that that little Mac Mini that I had for it, that I had used for it, was one of my streaming appliances that I use for Wirecast Rendezvous. So I needed that system back. So I had to move the service off of it, and it seemed like a good idea to kind of document the trip and see how the progress of ESXi has come over the years, because I haven't used it since I think version 5, which would have put it close to 10 years ago, close enough. But anyway, it failed, but I use VMware Fusion all the time on my Mac. You guys know that I run Windows on my MacBook, I run Linux, I run pretty much anything. I have my Kali Linux distribution that I use for penetration testing, and works great. So I figured, why don't we take one of these trash cans? And the other one is still over there, the one that failed, and I'm going to try to diagnose it and see if it's worth repairing or reinstalling ESXi over it. But I'm not sure if that's even, I'm not sure that's a project I really want to dive into. So this is its replacement, because we know that the Trashcan runs Big Sur, as we can see here, and also I know that VMware Fusion is very stable, so it doesn't, it doesn't take a stretch of the imagination to see this working. Now, this goes back to the different types of hypervisors, type 1, type 2, with Fusion being a type 2, ESXi and Proxmox and all those server grade enterprise versions, those are type 1s. So this is what, a type 1.5, because it's a server that's running macOS as the backend, and it's running Fusion on top of it. And I'm pretty sure this will work, because these 2013 Mac Pros are pretty stout machines if you're just using them for basic stuff. If you start doing hardcore graphics and editing on these things, they tend to come down. But those things are great servers. They work great for file sharing. They work great for directory services, lightweight stuff. And I don't see why I wouldn't be able to have, maybe some open directory servers and, maybe a VPN server, maybe some kind of a Plesk appliance. I don't know. We'll see what we can do with this. It's all, kind of up for grabs. But the idea behind it is that this computer is going to become a headless machine, to where these virtual machines start on their own, on reboot or on start. They will come up by themselves, they will log in, and boom, the services will launch. And I see this working the same way as an ESXi host would, minus all of the bells and whistles that you don't really need. In fact, I used to work with a team of people a long time ago that used, I think it was VirtualBox on Windows to run separate Windows versions on top of Windows. So in essence, you had 8 computers running on one platform, and then utilizing all of the resources. I think there was a limitation of some kind that you could do, and they were able to use a job engine that split the loads up between all of those virtualized versions of Windows on top of Windows. So it was a similar deployment, except with Windows. And I don't know if that worked very well. I also know that Windows is a lot bulkier than macOS. I mean, maybe not Big Sur, but if it works, we'll see. So we got about a half hour to go here, so we'll fast forward through this. Okay, the mouse in the top left-hand corner looks promising, and here's the setup assistant. At least I hope so. Almost. It's a partial setup assistant. Ah, there it goes. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see if we can get to United States. Keyboard works, so that's good. Mouse also works. Virtual machine captured the input. We're not worried about languages right now. Also not concerned about accessibility, since there won't be anything attached to it. This system is going to be just a headless Mac that's running all these virtual machines on it, and hopefully we'll just be able to access these virtual machines over the network for their server roles. Let's set up Apple ID later. Skip. Terms and conditions. We agree. For use on Apple branded systems, I see that right there. We are. No worries. Okay, so this is going to be, there's a mighty delay. Okay. We're just gonna do that. Yeah, it takes a while to navigate between these fields. What I need to do is I want my earth. So let's change that. I mean, bullseye can be nice too, but all right. Oh yeah, there's a delay here. I may just have to have the bullseye for a while. Or is it catching up with me? Maybe. This is why you really want to have a base image, and then from there duplicate your image for all your other services, so that way you don't have to go through this every time. You know, you get your virtual machine to a point where it'll work with what you have, and then you just duplicate it. During the duplication process, make sure that you tell it that you moved it, or I'm sorry, don't tell it that you moved it. Make sure you tell it that you copied it. So during the duplication process, make sure you specify that you copied the virtual machine, so that way VMware changes the MAC address on it. That way it thinks that there are two of the same machines, and since you can't have two machines with the same MAC address on the network, you want to make sure that that's all great and gravy. Yeah, I very rarely use moved because I don't know if I've moved it or copied it. Copied is your safe bet. Actually, I think nowadays it even tells you that if you're not sure, select copied. So, all right, let's get through this. The last of it here. Sure. We'll send usage data. It's not going to be much, but maybe when the OS crashes, they can get some information out of that. Screen time we'll set up later. Actually, we probably won't set up screen time on these. And no Ask Siri. And we will use dark. There it goes. Okay, now we have a working virtual machine. So what I'm going to do is I am going to eject that because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to shut this down actually. And then what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it, or I think it's called cloning, but that's pretty much the same thing. But the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that these virtual machine settings are correct. So I think what I'll do is I'll double that just to give it a little bit more breathing room. And then we will disable and remove the the CD DVD drive. Okay, so you see it's gone there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just clone it. We're going to create a full clone. And actually what I'm going to call this is server 1. I don't think this process will take very long. Oh, one word of note. I did forget to install the VMware tools. That's fine. I'll go back and install it off camera. It's no big deal. It essentially improves the performance between guest and host, so that will be something that I do, but not right now. Okay, so there's that. We'll continue with the sped up version of this. Okay, so the last server here is finishing cloning, and there it is. And I've just made a little 2x2 arrangement of these, and these are just the clones. So I turned off the base image just to be clear. So let's start these up. Boom, boom. And of course the window sizing didn't stick, so that's fine. We'll rearrange them in a second. So Well, honestly, in terms of time, I feel like they took about the right amount of time to boot. I don't feel like any of them are slower than the other. And they're all at the login window, so we know that they all work. Clocks even seem to be okay. So there you have it. So now from here on, we have options. We can do pretty much whatever we need. In fact, let's take a look real quick at activity monitor, because I'd love to see what kind of stats we have. Let's look at all processes. Let's look at update frequency very often. And I think that's it. So CPU load, looks like we have about 400% CPU usage, which makes sense for virtual machines. We can see here's VMware Fusion, and here are the VMX containers for them. And yeah, some of them are running a little bit beefier than others, but they all seem to be about balanced. You know, doing this, you can create as many macOS servers that you wish, or you can have Linux servers. In fact, one of the ones we're going to deploy here is going to be a CentOS Linux server for DNS. We've done videos to that before. I'll link it in the description below. And that's pretty much it. I feel like we've accomplished our mission. These 4 work, and the CPU usage is pretty low. In fact, let's take a look at that activity monitor one more time to see what the memory usage is. So it looks like we're using roughly about 18 gigs or so, plus minus. Oh yeah, down here it says 17.95 gigs of RAM. So we're way below the 32 gig threshold, so we can dump a lot more virtual machines at this, which is great. I think I'm going to keep it this way for a while, because I can manage macOS and I can manage VMware Fusion Pro 12, and it might actually be easier because you can access VMware Fusion through a remote desktop. So if I'm out of the office or whatever and I need to control this guy, which is running what you're seeing, then I can do so. I can fire up a server too while I'm away, so that's kind of nice actually. In fact, I like this a lot more, and I know you need the licenses for ESXi to be able to do that, so it's nice that you can do that pretty much for whatever the cost of VMware Fusion is. So again, thank you for sticking around. If you've made it this far with me, this was more of a trial and error type setup, and I'm thankful that it was successful. But if you have any questions, please leave them down below. We'll do our best to answer them. And as always, if you like this video, please consider giving us a like. Consider subscribing. It really helps us out and allows us to make more content. And until next time, thank you very much.